The mysterious Mr. Godspeed. Today, I find myself in quite a peculiar state of calm. It is almost an intensity as I sit and look out at the forest in which I am perched. The view never ceases to amaze me, and yet so many people wonder why I have chosen this particular place, selected this exact spot. To be honest, I believe them to be madmen. I have all I need and more, while they scramble for excess that will never be of their satisfaction. The fact is, I have found my people here. Even nature recognizes my being, my state of meditation. I recall recent times, a young fox that used to visit my safe haven. Often I would venture from my tree cabin and explore. I have lived here for many years, and yet I hold a certainty that I will never quite reach the depths of this fine maze, this beautiful underworld that found me, that I now dwell in. Anyway, I digress. Let us discuss the creature that called me her friend. As I stroked the bark of a wide-set tree, feeling the strange smooth of its skin, sensing the oak fragrance as it curled before me, I felt a stroke by my ankle. It was a tiny thing, a child, curious, just as I have been my entire life, to find a place of my own. Neither of us were lost, however. The young one stuck close to me for months. Even when it left my side, the fox never went far and decided to stay for my ramblings, tales of my past. It may sound quite strange as I say this, but the creature demonstrated understanding, bowing its head as I spoke my many truths and mistakes. I remember now, as I recalled alongside this harmless beast, how I came to inherit this place of calm in the trees. It would be a gross error to call me isolated, an outcast, at least to begin with. If anything, I stood at the center of society, a lawyer, a counselor. Many understand that this is not always an occupation beamed upon by many. Yet it was here where I found my community, blessed with a love and aptitude for words and their diverse manipulations. I saw myself rise to the top, as so many of my former colleagues said. There was much admiration for my legal feats, my way with language. Yet, as I progressed, grew closer to the community, I felt my body stretch further from myself. My mind bubbled much with external thoughts. In turn, I abandoned my original calling, slighted the gifts bestowed upon me, and instead turned to the wonders of nature, eager to explore the world's natural wonders, locations which demand nothing of the soul. Here, the world does nothing but provide, nothing but give. During my time at university, I earned a nickname, Mr. Godspeed. The fact was, I had an enormous talent for the legal profession. In turn, everyone around presented me with a blessing of sorts with this nickname, a branding of prestige, promise of great things. I lived up to their high hopes, turning my wished luck into extraordinary results in the profession. However, as I have noted, this name now represents something quite different. My original name means little to me. In many ways, I believe myself defined by the words of my peers. Every day is now a journey for me, a fresh channel of thought to explore in a world absent of distraction. And if any life should merit the nickname that I have earned, then it must surely be that one. Godspeed ought to be granted to those who dare to change for the good of the world around them, in a quest to dig the best for themselves. And the people who live nearby, close to the forest that encloses my home, call me something similar. Mysterious Mr. Godspeed. I can never help but chuckle at this modification. As I passed them for the first time, I let them know of my branded unofficial name, and they continued to change it based on our first impressions. They too live for nature and recognize the merits of a pure, sheltered life, harboring no need for material goods or services. In that regard, I believe that we are the same. Yet, I still remain distant from them, cooped up in my haven with little but books and trees to hold my mind in a fortress, to keep me company in my many journeys, those that I have completed and the ones I have yet to undertake in my haven. I cast my eye over my bookshelf before then taking a look at the food cupboard. I frown. I am running low. Grabbing my satchel and my jacket, I set out into the sun-spangled forest, continuing on to the quiet town below. As I flip through my leather satchel, however, I feel a stroking by leg, something that I have not felt for many months now. A light orange flash. Not one fox, yet a pair of the creatures as they circle, slinking their way around. Within an instant, I recognize an old friend. She is older now and has come to show me another friend that she has made on her own. I reach out to touch my acquaintance, feeling the brush of soft flame fur. A connection is felt. The lost friendship now found again. A rekindling of sorts has come to being. Charmed, the three of us settle and proceed on our way. As my comrades slink and circle through my stepping legs, yapping cheerfully, I reflect once more. This is the life I came to live, a life outside my head, connected to the purest of beings. With such thoughts, the journey continues. I do right by the nickname granted to me.
Pages of Wonder. Once again, I find myself alone in this little home, lost and hidden away in a small town in Warwickshire. A ginger cat has always accompanied me, however. Jasper, the feline friend that resembles marmalade, will always remain by my side. That much I am sure of. Yet it also, on this very day, that I feel a sense of desperation, the will to escape. Not physically, there's no need to go hiking, but to find another world that can be done at a low cost. Minutes later, I stroll into my local bookstore. I feel my age as I do so, but I remain keen to make these walks. It is here that I can access foreign regions from the palm of my hand. It is here that I will quench my thirst for freedom, for the moment at least. I let my hand slink along the shelves, keeping tight the hope that the right book will come into vision any moment now, On the next shelf, perhaps. No such luck. I scour the place, exchange glances with the quizzical old bookkeeper, who is now busying away with some other distant matter. What would I ask him? Even I don't quite know what I'm searching for. How on earth could he? And then I saw it. The scarlet cover was too enticing. I felt the fine bridge as I removed it from the shelf and let myself stare at the book's front. All that lay there was a full moon, dressed in gold. It was a thick piece of work, yet the book's outside gave no indication of its contents. However, as I opened it up and let my eyes run along the words, I discover something. I recognise the book. The name. A book I have read a couple of times before. A tale of heartbreak and lost love, yet elegantly written and elocuted. Yet, struck up in wonder and excitement with its rather fancy design, I walk straight to the counter, paying the amount to the elderly gentleman, and in turn leaving the store, my new book slotted neatly into the brown paper bag, one of the many stored behind the store counter. I did not waste a moment walking around my modest little cottage. I quickly sat myself down. Jasper then curled his furry form around my foot as I opened the scarlet book and began to read. Just as I remembered, the book was full of beautiful, with fine writing and descriptions. The author had traced a near-perfect narrative. Their creativity and vivid verbal art lit up the story. In a matter of minutes, I was quite entranced and enamoured with what I was reading. It all came back to me as I continued to turn the pages. Jasper quietly shifting below me as I tore through the world that had now been set before me in my hands. I saw the girl that the author told me about, her journey through love, her meeting with a young man with whom she was deeply in love, their relationship, their struggles, and then I fell upon it, the inevitable part, the reason that I had probably no longer kept the previous book in my possession. The two young people fell apart, as I knew that they did. It was a great tragedy. They thought that they knew what was going on, but the man failed the young woman described. I had practically memorised the story from this point. This was not intentional. The fact was that the writing was all too vivid. It was simply destined to stick in your mind. There was no two ways about it. I knew what was to come as I turned the last page, but I was left dumbfounded. The girl was damned to a life of loneliness, but instead rekindled her relationship and went on to greatly prosper, beginning a family with the man that she had quarrelled with and committing herself to him. How had this happened? I felt my mind go fuzzy in this moment. Was I losing my memory? No, that could not be true. But somehow, the ending of this book had been changed completely. I shook myself, now paying closer attention to the words before me. Suddenly I saw it. Something in the print. It was Gothic, clearly different from the pages that preceded. It all made sense now. The page as well. It was so clearly not the same, tinged with a light accent of yellow, a branding of strangeness. This page was never part of the book to begin with. Someone had fashioned it, fashioned a bright ending into what had been a dark story. My thoughts bubbled for a couple of weeks. I wondered who had done this. As Jasper swooped through my legs as I strutted around the cottage, I set myself to making notes, trying to figure out who did this. Who would ever want to do something of this sort? As I said, I was unable to get these thoughts off my mind. It was Monday when they finally started to die down. But then, a letter came. a scarlet letter, the exact same colour as the strange book that I had bought weeks earlier. An explanation? I walked to the door, collecting the item, slitting it open. I read, "Meet me by the White Bear Inn, tomorrow, 2 p.m. I had obeyed. I stood on the street, holding both the book and the letter tightly in my grip. I was not sure why. I almost felt as though they would keep me safe. This was ridiculous, of course. It was soon after that a hooded man, sporting a tartan jacket, came to me and asked me to follow him. Usually I would not dream of following a stranger, but these circumstances were quite different. I knew that. He led me back onto my own street, before taking my hand and leading me back into the bookstore. The place was sparse. In an instant, he turned on me and revealed the inevitable. It was the shopkeeper, or, as I later learnt, Alan. Smiling warmly, he stepped forward before removing the book from my grip. "I'm sorry that I did not explain myself sooner. I wish that I had informed you of what I had done as you bought the book. I really do apologise." But why? My words came out far too quietly. I'm surprised that he even heard me as he speaks again. "I have grown tiresome of the miserable books in this store, and in turn I sought to resolve this problem," he begins again. "I found a reasonable way to do it, using the pages of old and damaged books to make lovely endings for the sad, modern pieces that we now find ourselves with here." He sighs. "The truth is, I cannot help but feel that my life has been led away from what I intended for it to be." He furrowed his brow, looking sadder by the moment. "I wish to bring joy to myself and others by showing what can be made of a story, a set of events. To this day, even in my old age, I believe that something exciting, positive is to be made of the story that I have led, my life." I feel something stir inside me. I cannot cry or smile. A warmness swells as I take him by the hand. I lock his gaze as I do so, trying as hard as I can to make the impression. "I know your pain." My new and improved book in my weaker grip, we walk through the doors of the store and walk out back into the village, Jasper swirling in between our legs as we stroll. It is time to make something more of our story.
The Grand Bazaar. As I slipped back into the steaming tub, I felt my own thoughts turn and bubble in my mind. I had so many questions to ask myself, and I had come here in the hope that I could find the answer to each and every one of them. As the soothing water ran back up to my shoulders, I took the chance to reflect on my early stay, my first impressions of the place that I was simply destined to call home. Istanbul is a city of intensity. You can feel the fire as you walk through the market, into the winding, ornate streets. It rends at you until it feeds part of your soul. I became aware of this fire, this intensity, the moment that I stepped foot in this spectacular place. The culture laces itself at your heel and does not let up until your plane is many miles away. In this moment, you recognize that borrowed homesickness, that burning will to return to that intensity, the noise of the city. But why did I ever come here in the first place? There were so many other promising destinations on my radar. Tel Aviv, Morocco. The heavy Western influence that my friends had on me almost drove me back. To this day, I have pictures of Italy's elegant Veneto and the southern regions of France. and yet they both fall by the wayside when faced with this state of majesty. The deep energy of the streets stung me again. I remained hungry, however, even in spite of the experience Istanbul had given me. I was hardly convinced that I had searched thoroughly for life, a reason for being. The moment I awoke that day, I gave myself a mission. I would not return without finding the best of the city, the thing that would lock me in this paradise, to never return home. I had a checklist of the places that would give me this. Indeed, I was determined to find them all. Even at this early hour, the outdoor market was ablaze with business, customers haggling away, fizzing with excitement as items were giddily exchanged in their hundreds. I did not even bother to bite back my own short smile of excitement as I walked through the deals sounding out around me. Stop, I told myself. This is the time to focus now. This is my life. Alongside all of the wonderful noise, I saw the calm, devout side of the city. It never ceased to amaze me how the two forms interacted with each other on a daily basis. A giant mosque sprung with an intricate dome, shadowing us all as we went about our daily business. How could a city so loud and full of life also hold such serene nature in the background? It was almost as though the Istanbul population had to live two opposite lives. A perfect balance. Having completed the massive commerce, I turn into a far quieter street. Some street vendors mill around still, selling artisanal goods crafted with an expert hand, branded with the highest quality. The baskets sing and gleam as the sun sinks its folds into their lattice. I feel myself reach into my pocket, about to ask for a price, but then I find myself stop. The item at the bottom of my checklist has risen into view. The Grand Bazaar. The words chime in an instant. It's the crown of commerce in Istanbul. I remember what a friend had said about this place. That was what drove me to put it on the checklist, and yet I had forgotten. I had no idea that this had been hiding. In fact, I had almost dismissed it due to its over-traditional title. I simply had to see what it had to offer. As I entered, I felt the warm embrace that all shoppers were now accustomed to. It was astounding. The intricate designs that lined the walls leapt out at me as I drew myself onward. It was even more deafening than the scene outside. Laughs and roars boomed through the halls, reverberating about as deals were made at a frightening rate. I saw everything from finely crafted carpets in an explosion of patterns and shades stood next to stacked mobile phone stores. Every possible item was for sale here, and the vendors let you know about it. My mind slowly sunk into the crazy atmosphere. The architecture was equally incredible. Grandiose swirling pillars framed at all corners, linking to form wonderful ceiling designs, a notable characteristic of all great buildings in this part of the world. I milled about for hours, drinking in the scene until there was nothing else to be gained. What an experience. The very next day, I set out to explore the street, which resided by the magnificent market that I had discovered the day before. Surely there were more wonders in waiting. I just had to find them. Sure enough, right by the magnificent hotel stood an old-fashioned bookstore. The storefront was sprawled in writings which had been etched deep into the creamy enamel. Turkish, Arabic, Hebrew, French, and English were just a cluster of the languages featured in the welcoming script. I was greeted by the keeper's genial grin as I stepped through the door, letting myself down in the mountains of covers that lined the store. Incredible. Another thought suddenly came to my mind. This would be the perfect place to search for gifts. I quickly ventured to the main section, where the brightest covers lay. letting my fingers run along the ridges. I finally landed upon a heavy novel of a dark emerald tint. Its name was written in Arabic, golden script, with the English translation down below. I did not care for the price. I simply had to buy it for its beauty. I was about to take it from the shelf when a woman removed it herself. Just as I was, the woman found herself enamored with what she had found. I saw the look in her eye, the wish to find oneself, to find the things worth looking for. She quickly realized what she had done and apologized. "I'm so sorry. Did you want to take that book?" I shook my head, explaining that it had merely caught my eye. Searching the shelves once more, I found an equally fantastic piece of work that was dressed in the same scarlet as the Grand Bazaar. We both laughed as we talked about how we had reached this fine place and then came upon a deal between discoverers. It transpired that it was not a single book that we were looking for, but the experience of escape and discovery. She agreed to give the emerald book to my mother, to whom it was originally intended, and in turn, I agreed that the Scarlet Edition would be a gift to her sister. Charmed by her character, I took one step further into this adventure. "Would you like to walk with me?" I asked lightly. "Where to?" she inquires, smiling. "I'm not sure. Let's find out."